All right, hello, folks. Welcome to Bards and Books. We are back today. I'm joined by Nick again. We are on book 6 of Dungeon Crawler Carl. This is The Eye of the Bedlam Bride. Man, what did you think of this one, Nick?
Definitely one of the best ones of the series, I think. It just keeps getting better. You got to see a lot of lore drop on this one because they're kind of like throughout all the other books to kind of like fed you a little bit of this is a little bit of his past. Here's a little bit of this character's past. Here's a little bit of whatever. Now it's like everything's like laid out on the table for the most part, of what's going on in the whole universe, which is really interesting. I'm a big fan of this.
Oh yeah, it's expanding greatly, and I didn't know how he would top the last book 5, because that was like my favorite by far. But this one I think was exactly on that level. I mean, there were definitely different elements to it. More things stood out. We got more like backstory. We got different sort of tone here, but man, did I enjoy it just as much as the last one. And I'm so sad that we have to wait now for book 7. So,
Yeah.
I knew this was coming, but luckily we do have some options for the viewers to pick our next LitRPG. What we're going to dive into. We have 5 options. I'll go through that at the end of this video, but yeah, we'll announce that what you can pick for us to go through next. But yeah, let's get back to The Eye of the Bedlam Bride. So, first of all, we got a couple narrators joining in this one. So on top of Jeff Hayes' Soundbooth Theater, we have Travis Baldry, and we have Patrick Warburton, who plays Carl's dad. Yes.
I don't know how they got that guy involved in this at all, but that's wild. Wild.
It was awesome. I mean, he was one of the highlights of this book for sure. So those two, we get a recap. We finally get a recap now of the previous book, which I appreciate very much. So we get a recap of what happened in book 5 and kind of set things up for this book. Nice prologue here. We got Audette and Mordecai and their history, them going through level 10, sort of the dynamic that they had, the crazy stuff that they went through, and why we learn finally why Mordecai harbors all this animosity towards Audette and that other guy who was
Chaco.
Chaco, right? Chaco. So we finally get that backstory. That was super interesting because they were on level 10, and you see now that starting around this level, gods come into play very, very much, right? Because we're getting into like stronger enemies and more grandiose kind of things. So definitely a lot more gods in that floor with them.
You see why Audette just feels bad, or why she did it in the first place, why feels bad that Mordecai has all this animosity and hate for her, even though she's like, all I wanted to do was to help, but by the end I could see the finish line of my career in the dungeon. So I just wanted to push past. If I didn't get him to the next level, I would have been poor when I left the dungeon. I would be struggling to survive. And she wanted to have a little bit of a life. And so that's why they get to see these different parts. It's like, why is Mordecai mad? Well, she got his brother killed, and why did she do that? And why did Chaco do that? And it looks pretty tough at that level. Be interesting to see what happens to the gang at that point.
Yeah.
But,
what can you do? I mean, everybody's against you, right? They they end up forcing you into these situations of betrayal and whatnot. And you got to kind of pick, like, what's the saying? The
best option,
the bad or the worst, the bad or the worst option. So these kind of dilemmas are going to come up, and
it's kind of like definitely the theme of this book. It's like, well, how many people am I going to screw over? Am I going to screw over people who, are close to me, or am I going to have to screw over strangers? And that was kind of supposed to be the theme of the dungeon, is like, if you're not like directly close to me at this point, we're gonna have to screw you over. Like, I gotta look out for me and mine,
Yeah.
So definitely the theme for this book. It was supposed to be like, the floor was supposed to be like, this floor is gonna trim down the crawlers pretty heavily, was at least the goal,
Yeah. But anyways, this setting, we know, so it's back on Earth. We know that it takes place several weeks, I believe, before the collapse. So things are still going around. We got people, we got animals, everybody's going about their day-to-day life. However, they're all ghosts, so you can't really interact with them. But everything else is real. So, you get hit by a car, you could die, stuff like that.
You run into them, their clothes fall off, their watch, their shoes.
Right.
Then immediately Donut gets kicked by a ghost and just like pulls everything off the guy.
Yeah.
stuck in the street, the pile of clothes.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about this floor is, because of this whole dynamic, the crawlers are not allowed to keep stuff to take with them to the next floor, which, because that could have been, that could have ended very differently, just stocking up on tons of stuff.
Go to a military base and steal all the guns, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have a whole new theme for this part of the dungeon as well. As a new game where they introduce a new mechanic that you're basically hamstrung into using for the floor.
Yeah, the card game. What are they? Are they Tigi totems?
Yeah, Tigi totems.
Yeah.
Which is, I think it was originally a religious thing from a different floor. They're kind of like tarot cards or whatever, tarot cards. And basically bastardize it into a version of Pokemon.
Yeah. But some of the funniest characters and creations in those cards, I mean, Uzi Jesus.
Yeah.
Uzi Jesus. We got
very hilarious. It's
Mm-hmm.
a great character. All the characters they chose for, like even the seal, a monk seal.
Yeah.
Hilarious, doing like the kung fu noises. He's like, as he moves around, it just, you hear the
yeah.
and
But one of the funniest cards for me was the crab. What's
really
his name?
Rahul, yeah.
The funniest. Okay, you know what? We're gonna jump
ahead of ourselves.
We're gonna jump right to it. The funniest scene in this book for me is when Rahul, the only way to save the next part was for Rahul to unleash his sperm into the ocean, and he had to get Alpha Carl to yell at him and berate him to get him going. Something about Patrick Warburton's voice yelling at him like that in the background just made me laugh out loud. It was so funny. That was the funniest part for me. Funnier than Samantha, who is in this book, who didn't expect, who's my favorite character in the previous one.
I do agree. Like Patrick Warburton, I mean, like, he does a character that I don't usually hear him being a dark evil character in most of the stuff he voice acts. So it's interesting when he was playing Carl's dad, which is a character he plays.
Yeah.
Just to hear that, like, him kind of playing more of an evil character. It's very interesting to hear that voice kind of aligned with that, because usually you think of like evil Kronk or evil, Joe Swanson or whatever. It's wild to kind of hear that.
Yeah, but it worked.
It worked really well. Well. Well, he was a bad card in the beginning, but then when he was Carl's card, he was like, "Hey, bro, you need to talk about your feelings," and like, "Yo, you're my like my little bro.
Yeah.
That was like right before that was also probably. I mean, that whole part was just from
Oh
start
man.
to the end. Like just I think you're just right. That's the whole period there was so good. But
Absolutely.
yeah.
But let's go back. So we got Mordecai in this one. He's a Hills Cyclops. Kind of a big
Patrick Starfish kind of looking
yeah,
guy.
that kind of voice. Yeah.
Little
That was
dopey voice.
interesting. That was interesting. And once again,
Mhm.
Samantha's here. Huge surprise. Oh man, made it so good. I love Samantha. You know, she's my favorite character.
Because at the end of the last floor, she was like, she might have been teleported away, but she like
Yeah.
zoomed off with like crazy powers that she's not supposed to have
I
and
assumed she would
flew
have been
in.
transported to level 9 with everybody else, with the NPCs, but that
She
wasn't the
took
case.
off. She took off at the end of the book through the brambles. Just blew through the brambles to the I guess to the safe room somewhere. I don't know
Yeah.
where.
One of the big surprises right away, Carl gets a celestial box
Yes.
for being an apex predator. He killed the most hunters last floor, and he killed the last hunter specifically. So that celestial box ends up being a skulls patch, like a big patch for his back, and I believe he has a bunch of buffs or um, powers that he can use for that.
He gets a bunch of buffs. He gets these. He gets 3 skills with that, including this ominous bone key one.
Yes,
And
the
then
bone key.
also it's like it's a celestial item. Like every time a god shows up, it gives him either a debuff or a buff, depending on what it is. And usually,
Yeah,
if it is a debuff, at the end, when the god goes away, it becomes a buff. For example,
yeah,
like that lady came, the vinegar bitch came, and
right.
all of their potions turn to vinegar. But when she leaves, they all become
Mm,
higher tier potions. They gain
yeah,
something out of it. So
yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah. And I think the main thing here is we have a power bar now. You can fill up and unleash in like one huge brutal attack.
He's getting all these
Yeah.
skills with these terrible side effects that he doesn't quite know
Mhm,
what's going to happen with it. He's got
It's not
the
good to leave it.
ring, he's got the jacket
Yeah,
patch.
but it's not good to leave it powered up for
Full.
too long. You want
Yeah.
to expel it as soon as you can. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe at the end he wasn't able to release it.
He
So
forgot. He was seriously injured though, so he was kind of like the last thing on his mind. He was like, let's try to save as many people as we can. We got 30
yeah.
minutes to get this done. And then right
Mhm.
when he's about to go to the next floor, he's like, oh, I forgot. And
Yeah.
he technically he's leaving the floor early.
Mm.
So
Is that going to accumulate over days? Is that going to affect him?
that's the thing, right? Is it going to
Yeah.
affect him because he's spent like a couple of days? Is he going to come out of this thing like fucking wackazoo? Are we going to see like that big change in personality for him in the next floor? You think he's going to stay the
Yeah.
same?
But not only that, so much happened to him. Like
Mm.
we'll touch on it later, but the Bedlam Bride,
Let's
the
go
Eye
straight
of
to
the
that.
Bedlam Bride,
Mm-hmm.
right? But anyways,
We talk about let's run through pause and the
right. Yeah.
nun and all that
So
first.
they meet
And
the two prisoners, or they think is prisoners, and the nun. Get a cool little story going on with them, and I like the big twist we got, where they're not actually prisoners, and the nun has this ability where you spend more time around her, you get the urge to protect her and stay with her. So that's kind of we assume what happens to those two, and they end up dying in pretty brutal ways, and the whole twist with the nun. So explain if can you explain to me the whole twist with the nun? What was she scheming, and how did that play out? Because I got a little
well,
confused with that bit.
those two guys were actually guards, not prisoners, at a lady prison, and the nun was a murderer.
Mm,
She killed off everybody at her nunnery. She
mm,
poisoned them all. She's like the poisoner nun or something like that.
okay.
And
Yeah.
apparently, the medication she was on was helping her, but because they're in the dungeon now, that she doesn't need medication anymore, but apparently they think that the dungeon's messing with that. Her medication amount to make her go crazy again when they want her to go crazy, and kind of flips everything on their head, because it's like, oh, obviously these two guys are criminals. They're kind of acting real sketchy, and the nun was trying to calm them down, and then things started flipping around, and the guys try to calm the nun down, because they're like, hey, the nun, you don't freak out or whatever, because she's very religious Christianity, and there's all these false prophets with the gods in the game. She kind of gets in contact with the nebulars, who have a deity sponsor for I believe it was the vinegar bitch, who's trying to get basically she summons the nebulars, basically get her to summon a demon from hell. And she's like thinking like, this is the apocalypse, she thinks that she's going to go to heaven, and then all the sinners will stay and be in hell or whatever. She thinks that if you die now, at least you'll go to heaven. You're not going to be, the more you play this game or deal with these people, you're not going to be, your soul isn't safe. And these are all like heretical symbols or whatever. So the vinegar bitch was a god, but they didn't have anybody in the driver's seat. Like a lot of the other times, like they had like the Skull Empire guy in the driver's seat, or Vra was in the driver's seat of the nature squirrel god from the last floor or whatever that she died in the 100 Day spell.
First of all, let me just say I liked the card system. I know a lot of people I've heard say the card system here, the mechanic of this floor didn't really do it for them. I'm a Magic the Gathering fan. Like, I played Yu-Gi-Oh when I was younger. It was nice. It made me want to play. That's all. That's all it really did. It made me want to play. But it was all right. It was good. It was interesting. The one thing that I was looking forward to a lot here, and something that we got a lot of, which I appreciated, was more of the history of Carl and his parents and what happened with them, and Carl, essentially seeing his dad, meeting his dad there, and seeing that he had another family, and he had a younger brother named Asher. Just that whole scene there was pretty touching. Yeah, we learned that his mom tried to poison his dad, and then she hung herself, I believe.
Yep. So we actually get the truth, what actually happens to Carl's mom, because it's been hinted at, and like, is this what happened? Did she, is the water running in his mind? Is that like, has she killed herself by drowning herself? Did she hang herself? All that kind of stuff. What's the water noise? But I guess she left the tap on and hung herself.
Yeah.
After trying to poisoning her husband. But Carl had a tough childhood. And, he just kind of like grew up, and he just kind of put that in the box behind him, and he just kind of like never talked to it, never told B, didn't even talk about it aloud. So Donut never even knew, so he's just like, I had this past, I made things for myself, didn't even think about, that kind of stuff.
But the crazy thing is, we get that revelation where Beatrice apparently knew about Asher. Like, she had a picture. She had a picture of them or him.
Yep. And just, I was on Carl's Facebook and was like, anybody who had any girl that added him or anybody who messaged him to just kind of like block and kind of like curb who he could see or who was talking to him. In fact, one of the girls that a woman at his work that just kind of like got fired randomly is because he got her fired. Crazy ex-girlfriend.
Crazy. There were a lot of revelations there that kind of blew your mind, You did not expect that.
I mean, they try to make you feel a little bad for her in the last book when B went on to the show, Dungeon Crawler show or whatever, and now it's all kind of evaporated. All that goodwill of like, I missed you. I didn't. All the feel bad. it's kind of all gone now. You're like, oh, Jesus.
Well,
And she was
well, they
doing
kind
that
of,
on top. That's what a
yeah.
cycle.
Well, I'm glad they kind of forsook her there during the
Hmm.
show when they met her,
Yeah.
because all this stuff now. So
Do you think
yeah,
she's coming back into any? She's gonna show up in any later books, or?
she might, because like we're getting more stuff with her now. All this backstabbing and betrayal with her,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So more intrigue happening with Beatrice. So I'm thinking we might see more of her.
Do you think that she's gonna have be a little bit vindictive to them for like just giving her the cold shoulder?
Maybe,
She's gonna try to backstab him from space.
maybe somehow she'll end up in faction wars. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know. But one thing, another thing, because there was so much, like we said, so much in this book. We learned from Rosetta, who is a former cookbook crawler from the cookbook.
Hmm.
Um, I think she signified to Carl something about Milk's passage from the cookbook.
Yep.
His entry using the root vegetable, the yam.
Yeah.
Right? What was that about? Do you Can you clarify
Well,
that a little bit for me? Because I know
oh God,
the yam is significant in some
the
way.
yam is significant. Oh God, what did he use the yam for? Did he end up using the yam on this floor? I don't think he did.
I
I know
don't.
there's two things. There was two things that they gave him during that, like two hints, basically. One, all the Miami, because they hadn't chosen where they're gonna land for the next part yet when they had that. So they sent him like all the videos that were supposed to be from uh, Donut's favorite shows. They're all from the wrong shows. They're all from shows that were like based in Florida, like Miami Vice and stuff like
Hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, oh, they're all from Florida. Yeah, somehow he picked that out. Like even them talking about it, I was like, I'm not gonna think Florida, but
Yeah,
because they wanted him to go to Florida for some reason.
and apparently the stuff taking place before the crawl, even before the world even collapsed. They
Mm-hmm.
had agents. There were agents on Earth, right? One guy from that place in Florida who kept giving the speech every week,
Yep, every day.
every day, in
Mm-hmm.
hopes that Carl would come
Well, just
or
anybody
some
would come.
would
That the
come and
dungeon would see it.
see it on
Yeah.
that floor
Mm-hmm.
while they were on that floor. Crazy, crazy.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a whole other background thing with this where it's like they're not part of the pacifist group at all. They're like separate from that. They're like another entity they haven't really given us a lot of information on yet. I'm sure we'll
Hmm.
get to that eventually, but it's all like they're all brainwormers like Agatha. And there's also two factions within that. It's something
Yeah.
about like freeing the dungeon AI. Like they're like trying to give it sentience or trying to fight back because there's like a whole thing with the dungeon AI, and they program the AIs in a certain way for the system, the galactic system. This is beyond. We're getting to areas that we haven't really touched on. It's probably going to come more into effect in the next book. They're just
Yeah.
kind of like dropping a little bit of early lore. Like here's some stuff with Agatha. Here's some stuff with like why these worms are even in the game at
Yeah.
all.
So much different POVs, different, elements coming in.
Mm,
We just know
a
that the
lot of
AI,
backstory.
yeah, we just know that the AI is going primal, right?
Yeah.
So all these other things are kind of happening around it now. I can't even imagine what the next book is going to be like.
God.
And like taking into account all this stuff plus faction wars, plus the level we've been waiting for with the tiara and whatnot.
Oh God.
So
All the fighting and everybody's like with this book he's actually got everybody locked in now.
mhm,
Nobody can leave. Dungeon's
mhm,
taken full rested control. It's now a separate
mhm.
entity. It's not, you know,
Yeah,
the dungeon and the administration against the crawlers. It's dungeon it's its own separate entity, and the crawlers and the NPCs and the players and the admin staff and everybody, it's all like
I mean,
one big jumble mess.
we get another meeting with Orin and
Mm-hmm.
this Caprid guy who wants to take out Carl and Prepotente, right? What's his name? Harbinger.
Harbinger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh God.
Like,
It's a must read for sure.
oh, the series is so worth it.
Oh
So
my God.
worth it. It's definitely one of the I can't speak too much, but you could, because you've been through a lot more LitRPG than I have.
A lot of that stuff goes pretty slow. I mean, there's a lot of slow burns out there. This one is not a slow burn.
Yeah, there seems to be this sort of stigma around LitRPG, this kind of stuff. Like, you don't take it seriously, or it's not that intriguing or deep or what have you. This series defies all that.
Mm-hmm.
This series is everything. So
I'm not gonna lie, a lot of it, there's a lot of good stuff and bad stuff with LitRPG. Some of it can really drag on. Some of it, it's a lot of samey stuff for some people.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's just some golds like this,
Yeah, we won't delve too much into the mechanics of how the card game works, but it was very interesting, and very interesting characters on the cards. Like I said, they picked up Uzi Jesus from Florin. They had She Maria, who was the Bedlam Bride. The other cool thing about the setting, it's not just their world where the people and the animals are ghosts. They also include folktale, monsters from mythology and stuff. Those are actual characters here as well, like monsters and stuff.
So but kind of with like a cartoon lens on it, right? There's just kind of like, it's Uzi Jesus, or all these other. I think they have the god of smallpox. That's one of the characters they get,
Yeah.
And they kind of have some of the history, and I think one of the first monsters they fight is like Che Guevara, but like a spider or something that yells at them. It's all over the place. They're just kind of like, they take part of the story and they just kind of add whatever. I think they even hinted that Samantha runs into Speedy Gonzalez, which was pretty hilarious. Like, there's a mouse with a very big hat. Oh, it's running away so fast. Can't keep up with it.
Yeah. You were right. I think you were talking about addiction. The last one being more of a play here. We deal with Katya, who has an addiction. We dive into that a little more.
Very flips like real cut and dry. Like, boom, she's got it, and like they have a plan. They have to do this assassination mission. Oh my God, I can't believe it. I almost forgot about the assassination mission.
Right.
It's big too. It's a whole thing.
That was a big thing. The assassination of Astrid, and oh my God, the way Carl rips her wings off, and then like you learn she has children, and her husband was the one ordering the kill. Like that was just so sad,
Well, not to mention that they hint that she's not an NPC. They hinted that she's not an NPC. She's actually a former crawler, as well as her husband was a former crawler.
Yeah.
And their kids. And that's why she's trying to protect them. That's why she's got them in this male strip club or whatever. Instead of like fighters. And then she's like trying to like protect them. And then the same thing with, I guess her husband was like, if he kills her off, he'll get more money for when he leaves the system, or from when he leaves the dungeon. So he's like, well, I'll make a mission so that you can. Basically, that's what it's kind of been played out to be. Another kind of backstab, like the prologue.
Absolutely tragic.
Exactly.
Oh man.
And it's Carl doesn't even realize till after it's done. Like, oh no, I think that was actually a person. And I just. And it was like was trying to like Astrid was even trying to protect Carl, like trying to like, oh, stay back, get out of here, you need to leave, and trying to protect everybody. And Carl basically backstabs this person, you know,
brutal,
feeling like, oh, it's an NPC, but it's not. It's a lot of, you know, I mean, he didn't do the finishing kill, did he?
I think he did.
Was it? I think he ripped a couple of things off.
Okay,
but I'm not sure. I think it might have been Katia that did the last, because I mean she's got some player killer skulls. I don't think Carl even has one yet.
Yeah, that's right.
Carl hasn't killed anybody yet.
Yeah, but I mean, again, going back to the other thing that you were talking about, betrayal, big thing here. You were right. Lots of betrayal. Like that was hard to stomach a bit. Astrid's death.
That was really nasty. That was like even like some of the NPCs, and they basically just released the hounds on this, you know, place, and they're just like, we gotta do this thing to survive ourselves, but it's just like, at what cost at the end of the day?
After that, we'll jump back to a humorous scene. We got Samantha kidnapping Charles Ellis, the bartender, and then his subsequent death. Man, Samantha's hilarious.
That was brutal.
She's
so OP.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But that other the other part that made me laugh out loud was when Carl's trying to have that serious heart-to-heart with her, like, look, you know, I need you to do this, you're good at this, blah blah blah. And she just keeps messing with him. She's like, you mean that with my tongue? It's like, no, damn it, I'm trying to be serious. Here's an interesting thing. We got Audette sponsoring a god. So remember, the other god gave them that mission to have Audette come in.
Yes, and be their liaison. Their oh god.
Some
basically boils down to like basically a military news person, military photographer, basically.
Okay.
They'll kind of like be on planet, but be able to, you know.
Right.
They're just kind of like give them their information and let them know what's going on during the fight, and just kind of give them information instead of, you know, kind of be their second in command, but deal with all the day-to-day stuff for them.
So, but that doesn't end up happening. Audette sponsors a god, Nekabit. So Audette's going to be playing a god in the next one, and Carl chooses Baroness Victory, this orc lady, as as that person instead, as the adjutant. That's right.
Yes.
Because the others were trying to sue her to keep her out of the game.
Yes.
Or the others are trying to sue the corporation to keep her out of the game.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Want her in there. Quite different. I mean, you know, there's a lot in orc. The whole orc planet thing. There's a lot of like, nobody likes anybody there. Apparently, you know, there's a lot of backstabbing going on.
Yeah.
Even what's the one that sponsors Katia, the orc that sponsors her, Princess Stenadia. Princess. No, that's a Princess.
Oh, Princess Formidable, isn't it?
Yes, Formidable. Yes.
Yeah.
Formidable is like she's trying to kill off her brother's dad or whatever. Not happy with how they treat the people in their system. So all kinds of terrible things going on. It's going to be interesting seeing what Audette really plans to do, because from the very beginning, she told Carl, like, if you don't know what somebody's wants from you, you know,
don't trust them.
And she's trying to like lay it on the line and try to tell him like, oh, I feel bad and yada yada yada. But it's like from the very beginning, it's kind of this very flip-flop where it makes you think that she feels real bad, but at the same time, some of the actions she does, where she like, instead of betting on Carl, she'll like sponsor somebody else that Carl has issues with.
Well, she seems to have this master plan in mind. You don't really know what it is, but you did hear the speech that she gave Carl about how inhumane the crawl is, and her plan to basically for that crawl to be the final one, you know, to end it. So,
Which, I mean, I wonder if she's in talks with the people of the cookbook, the pacifist group or whatever, pacifist collective or whatever.
yeah.
If she's partnered with that at all, if she even knows that's going on. You know,
that could be very interesting. Yeah,
that could be interesting. I'm excited to hear more about the pacifist collective,
yeah,
and all the other people who were part of the anarchist cookbook. You know,
yes, yeah. Well, yeah. There's a big reveal at the end there, but let's move on to part 2 now. I find it incredibly hilarious how crawlers, like this whole card game mechanic is in play, but the crawlers just keep killing their opponents before they can even do the card game, you know, ending it right away. And annoying Cascadia, who is that administrator, you know, the announcer, says kill, kill, kill.
Yeah.
But what's funny is when they do that, they get a gold Prepotente box.
Yeah.
For doing that because of what Prepotente did from the 7th floor.
Yeah, just like, oh, you're ruining the game. Here you go.
Before you can even do anything.
Oh, it's pretty funny. And I mean, like, makes sense. I mean, they're trying to like make the game work, but they kind of had that flaw where they're just like, well, only one person in your group can use the cards and play the card game. And it's like, and the other guys, I guess you guys can just like fight or whatever. And so they just like, all right, well, we'll just one shot, you know, no scope the the opposition right away, and we won't have to deal with this.
You get a gold Prepotente box and it screams at you.
Yeah. Oh god, that's so funny. I love Prepotente. Such a great voice. He did perfect thing for Prepotente.
Yeah.
Every time he does that like scream, it's just, you know, brings a smile to my face. I'm like, always unexpected. Yeah. It's like always right in his ear or something like that.
Yep. And well, the other thing is, you know how Carl is getting a whole bunch of more crazy stuff to deal with. It's nice to actually see him get, you know, a bit of closure with his parents, or at least, you know, with his dad, and seeing his brother, even though it's incredibly sad. It seems like that's kind of what he needed in the moment. And even after, when he's like fighting that Hydra, the boss monster, when it's like the heads of all his loved ones and whomever, it doesn't really faze him, you know. He's able to deal with it, no problem. And then Alpha Carl, you know, and King Croissant.
And just like the cat could sing perfectly and yada yada.
Yeah.
Carl was like jacked and talking mad shit. Alpha Carl was talking mad shit and was jacked as fuck. Pretty hilarious.
I loved Alpha Carl.
Yeah, Alpha Carl was great. I wonder, because I think it's because the area where that the boss battle was, as well as where he had to go deal with seeing his dad actually get murdered by his next wife. Finally, somebody gets it done, and seeing his brother or stepbrother. I think at that point in that house area, they can actually take things and they'll come with him. So I think he's going to have that motorcycle again. So I'll get another option for movement. Wonder if he'll charge into battle on the next floor.
Nice. That would be cool.
And he also gets a revolver. You never know if that might come into handy some point.
Yeah.
I don't know. Apparently it's like, this is basically useless to me, and it's more likely going to blow up in my hands because everything I use now has a higher, you know, strength to it. If I put my bomb table, or if I lay it on the bomb table, just being next to it raises the stats of the bullets and stuff like that. Yeah. You know, you kind of really pay attention in these books, because it's like you never know, this is going to be a hint to something else, or this is going to come up in the next book. I think the big part of that stood out to me was one of the rules of the dungeon is that the dungeon is not allowed to use children as enemies, especially relatives. For the crawlers cannot fight their own the relatives that are children.
Yeah.
And the dungeon's like, well, F you.
Yeah.
They're not exactly. I've changed 3 molecules, so technically, it's not. It's not the same child, but it was the head of, you know, all like B's mom and the son and his mother-in-law, I guess, and all those people. But because he couldn't fight Carl's dad, because Carl's dad was already dead at that point, which is quite wild that it kind of lined up that way.
Yeah, the AI is getting crazier. But what's cool is we learn about that whole, like the backstory behind the Mantis race, their breakthrough with a more stable AI.
Yeah, where they basically lobotomize the AI or something like that. So,
and Oren
that kind of leads in with the brainworm people.
Yeah. Oren mentioned that they had to negotiate with the AI, right? So near the end, before part 3, we learned that the Operative Collective, the Blood Sultanate, the Dream, Lemig Sortion, the Madness, the Reavers, they all request to abandon faction wars, and they all their requests get denied by the AI.
Yes,
I think
each group gets 3 votes, right? Basically, like to separate actions where they can either like try to leave or ask the dungeon, and it's them asking the dungeon. That's it, and it's like either the dungeon vetoes it or it becomes law. So I believe Princess Donatia, the alien person that took over Donut's spot, he was part of Donut's sponsors. It was. Now she's got a garbage company in the Stenadia's place. But Stenadia's tried to kill off. They find out that she tried to like kill Donut and Carl through the system by saying like, "Oh, get rid of Donut and Carl and all this other stuff, and then let me leave." That kind of thing, and kick him out, let him be a part of faction wars. Try to get him out of faction wars, but the dungeon AI basically said no on all points.
And this is all because Carl and Donut are trying to get everybody a part of faction wars to be able to die as well.
Yes. It's like hey,
safety off.
Exactly. And everybody. I believe to do that, what Carl did was he made it so he asked the system AI in those same prompts, like, hey, so everything that we can't agree on, anything that's has been, not been agreed to in the faction wars by the leaders, will get any citizens can all vote from home. And so all these things kind of came to be through the voting system at home. So basically they got everybody, so anybody who's unhappy with their leaders, they're like, well, I hope you fucking die. You're going to stay there, so.
What's funny is after the pacifist NFC, they sent the emergency benefactor box to Carl and Donut, which attempted to get seized by a liaison, but that was overwritten. Right after they sent that box, which ended up being the homeless shelter invite, they disappeared. Right, the NFC, they disappeared after sending it, and Zev, and we just get a warning from Zev telling Carl to be careful. That's it. I don't know if they've mentioned this, but that pacifist NFT group, would they not be the well, spoilers for the end, but the crawlers as we see at the end, the garbage?
They are, yes.
They are. They are, yes. So that's why they disappeared, because they're getting ready to make their appearance, I guess.
But they've also replaced, basically, because they're not. I think they got banned from being Carl's sponsor because they're now illegal, but they became Donut's new sponsor because Princess Donatia's spot is gone. So they should be part of faction wars. So they've been replaced. They're now with this garbage company, this cleanup company, which I think they kind of hinted to basically cleans up after they're done with the dungeon. And I guess either cleans up all the corpses or what, I'm not sure. But something to do along those lines.
Yeah, but man, what a shock for the end there when you realize there's like 50,000 plus former crawlers who are going to be in Donut's faction.
It's going to be interesting to see all the people, a lot of people from, the cookbook, very, very interesting, characters you're going to see come back. And maybe Milk will be in there. I don't know if Milk made it out. I think Milk made it out. Some of the first crawlers that were in that had the cookbook are coming. So it'd be interesting if you see some repeat names.
Yeah,
Most of the time when they talk about a guy in the cookbook, it's like that's that guy's last crawl, or last floor.
yeah.
Usually he's talking about a guy who dies or something like that.
Yeah, they think they died or they got
Mhm.
out. Something happened.
Yeah,
But we know that the that whole faction is run by, what are the names? Tidbit and Rosetta?
Oh God, no.
Yeah, Tippid, sorry. Tippid and Rosetta.
Tippid, yes.
The homecoming queen garbage ship. They gave Donut a celestial box at the end there, right?
That's right. Oh my gosh.
Right.
Something else for us to wait months.
Yeah. Oh man, I wonder what that's going to be. I wonder if we'll get a hint of it on the cover. Maybe. Maybe we'll see.
I guess big thing we kind of didn't touch on, but we should bring up is the keys. So basically, how this floor works is when you first start off, you get spawned right near the door that you need to use to leave to the next floor, but it's locked and you can't get to it. You have to then basically build up your deck. You have to kind of like fight all these gym leaders to get to the end and get your key. If you don't get all the gym leaders, then you can't fight the final boss. And if you can't fight the final boss, then you don't get a key. That doesn't mean the game's over for you if you don't get a key, because you can steal the key from somebody else in the third part, which is where sponsors of the crawl think this is how we're going to get rid of a lot of these crawlers. Is they're going to have to fight each other and kill each other, and maybe very few people get keys to get to the next floor. That's how their thought process was. Didn't end up working out that way, but because of that, Carl knows now that they have to get these keys. He beats their boss, get the key for their floor, but they realize, there's going to be people who are going to fight for our key, and there's going to be people who might try to hurt us to get it or won't be on our team, and our friends have to get keys, and we don't know how they're going to get home. We want to make sure that they survive.
Yeah, and I guess that bone key thing was it brought a lot of tension to the book throughout, just wondering if he's going to use that.
Oh yeah, it's like there's a door and it's locked and you have an option for a key. Later it gets brought up that it's a good thing he didn't have to use the key, because the bone key, how it works is
takes a random
destroys
bone.
his celestial. It takes a random bone, could be any bone, could be a toe, could be a femur. Wonder if it could be the skull. That could be just it.
Yeah.
So not good all the way around. Don't want a piece of your spine to just go missing. Not a good time. Also, it only works for one person. Carl didn't know that. That doesn't say that. Only the collective knows that, and they're like, "It's a good thing you didn't use that, because I didn't want to have him to have to make a choice between him or Donut, because he would probably send Donut to the next floor without him." So good thing he didn't have to use it.
So in part 3, I believe we get Quan. We get an emergence of him once again. And
he pro Yu-Gi-Oh player too.
Oh, dude. Quan is just being Quan. I mean, he does the fleas or the hand change and then the flea, right? That's his technique. He does
making you play a card that's in your hand, and making it so that you swap hands with him, and then you have to play the card.
Yeah,
and his whole deck is full of flea cards, so it just makes you fuck off.
Yeah.
It's such a dirty gamer move.
That's so dirty.
That's a Magic the Gathering move right there.
Oh, easy.
It totally is
easy. You can upset some people, but that's such a Quan move right there. Such a Quan move. And then he gets 2 keys. But what was so crazy about that was that at the end he just wanted that ring. That's all he wanted. The ring with the for daddy on it, which was from his daughter. You know? So it's like
It's
how do
like
you
he's trying to
feel?
make you feel bad for him. He's like, I'm
Yeah.
so,
How do you
embarrassed
feel
about
about that?
myself. And he just kind of like throws the ring at him, and then just, I don't give a
Yeah.
shit about you. It's very, very hardcore. But the worst one, I believe, basically working together with Carl is Serendagor. Wild ass name. I'm glad that I didn't have to like read the word and like have to say it out loud. I get to kind of go off of how
Audiobook for the win.
how Jeff Hay says it. I kind of say it how
Yeah.
he said it. So
Hmm.
if I said it wrong, don't blame me.
Yeah.
Blame Jeff
Yeah.
Hayes.
Hmm.
There's some tough names, man. A
No,
lot of tough names.
for sure. But
Um,
her death, man, another.
that was a tearjerker.
Yeah.
That was a tough one. That was a
You hate
really,
those
really
kind of
tough
deaths
one.
the most, when
Yeah.
people just give up and
I mean, yeah. I mean,
that's
it's
everything you're fighting against
and
overall.
technically she didn't need to. She didn't need to die. She didn't need to give up. She didn't need to pass it all off because
Yeah.
even though she didn't have a key, they figured it out in the end. She could have been
Yeah.
brought to the next floor. But I mean,
But
I
she
feel
was just
like
done.
some people you just, when you just give up on it
Yeah.
during a situation like that,
Once
it's
you're
not
done, you're
gonna,
done. Yeah. It doesn't
yeah.
matter. Yeah. It's crazy.
You
Crazy
Frank,
how.
you Frank Q it or whatever, you know.
Speaking of Frank Q, he was a good
Yeah,
card here. He was a
yeah.
card.
He's somehow he's a card, but like as an NPC, I guess. I don't think it's actually him.
I remember him getting played. I can't remember how
Hmm.
that resolved. Was it something quick and unexpected?
Yeah, it was kind of a quick, unexpected. He's like a dark elf ninja, something like that, whatever. It was super
Yeah.
fast, and uh, I don't think I think he just kind of like dodged him and got around it. And I don't know if he was fighting while he was fighting
Hmm.
Alpha Carl, and it was a tough, tough one.
And then we get it evened out with some more humorous scenes with that disease that Carl got with the slugs coming out of you, and how
Yes.
he uses that. He basically uses that to get rid of the demon, right? Because the demon needs a bunch of souls to pull it down, I guess, into the abyss, and they just use the slugs to
They use
help
it.
get rid of this.
Yeah, they use the slugs to get rid of the demons are jumping out of everybody, and he uses this slug disease
Hmm.
that he's like basically farmed out of himself.
Yeah.
Or no, he farmed it out of the penis parade strippers. He got them all sick, and he did the super
Oh,
spreader on them all, and locked them in
yeah.
a room, and just made a ton of
Oh
these
man.
gues.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
I
and
love how
they're so hilarious. So like little redneck Vikings.
I love how they just like as they get slugs get stronger, they get like little axes or whatever with them. Like,
I think they're like supposed to be like juggalos or something.
okay, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Pretty
Oh man.
hilarious.
Even the part where Carl was trapped in that big demon's hand and he kept punching himself, the demon, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like it was
Stop hitting
funny.
yourself. Oh,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
good.
It was funny that whole scene, but I think more terrifying than the demons was She Maria,
Mm.
and how when Carl looked at that eye, she that was a terrifying moment, and
Well,
then
it's
it
the whole
ends up.
tattoo thing. So
Yeah.
basically, they had Donut had already had Uzi Jesus out, and
Hmm.
then summoned She Maria, and she was going to combine the two of them to
Right.
fight. But as soon as she was about to do that, She Maria killed off the Uzi Jesus, and
Yeah.
so the only person that counted that the card would work on was Carl. It was the only
Right.
other person in the group. So She Maria and Carl fused when she used the fusion card.
Yeah.
And so then She Maria took over Carl's mind and basically read through all his stuff, and including seeing the dungeon, the cookbook. She went through his entire inventory and
Wow.
found the cookbook and said, "Oh, you're not supposed to have this."
Mm.
Ooh, so it's another thing he's got to worry about. If she can release her on the next floor out of his system, is she going to rat on him? Tell the system that he
Yeah.
has it. Is that going to like did her seeing it mean that he doesn't have it anymore? Does that mean the dungeon knows he has it?
Huh. Yeah. Didn't even think of that. Yeah.
So she basically made a tattoo, basically showing him how to use the tattoo needle thing, the prison tattoo kit,
Okay.
stick and poke tattoo kit, using her blood to make a tattoo of an eye on his chest, which she goes into, so she's no longer stuck on the tarot card. So
Yeah.
they can't rip the tarot card anymore.
She's a
Oh my
part
god,
of him now.
she's part of him now till he
And
can get her removed. Probably the
that's,
same place that they put the body in for Samantha. So,
but that brings up a lot of conflict because, like, the way he hurt Katia and Mongo, right? It wasn't
yeah,
himself, and the way he took out what's his name, Lee Jun's eye.
yes, stabbed him
Like,
in the eye,
he's
licked blood.
he is very dangerous now. Like,
Well, people, I mean, I feel like he feels real bad about that. It wasn't him. They all
yeah,
know it
yeah,
wasn't him.
of course, yeah, it
Even
wasn't
everybody
him.
was like, at the end, he was feeling terrible about it. He was getting carried out of there, and he's like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I did that. Are you guys okay?" Yada yada yada. Is Lee
I
Jane
don't
gonna be
know.
choked about that eye thing?
Yeah, and
You
what about
know,
his sister, right? The demon.
Is his sister gonna be mad? I mean, he did save their whole group in the very beginning, right? In the first book,
Yeah,
he saved their butts.
I don't know.
But
Ooh, that's going to
oh
be
god,
interesting to see.
yeah.
I
So
mean,
somehow the Carl kind of creates, a world mission at the end, convinces the dungeon basically like, I basically have this plan that if I give the guy enough souls that he can pull everybody up into the demon realm. Basically what happens is, because the demons try to pull crawlers down, crawlers can't go to that floor yet. So everything they have gets pulled down while they're in their clothes. Their clothes get pulled down to the next floor, but they can't go. So they just get basically run through a mesh.
the other hilarious part was the AI troll and Carl once again telling everybody that Carl jerked off the crab. Carl
That's a
jerked
good
off the
part.
crab. He's like, that did not happen.
That was the souls thing. Like everything has
Yeah.
a soul, including all the millions of sperm. And that's what the whole thing was like. All the souls. So that's why he's like, oh, we get the crab to come in the ocean. Use those souls because everything was a zombie at that point.
Right.
It's the whole other part we didn't even talk about.
Oh
zombieism.
My God. I don't
read the book.
I can't.
Yes. We'd be talking for 3 hours otherwise. 70% of people are going to die. A lot of people would have fought each other, yada yada.
Yeah.
He made it so he basically made a quest. It convinced the dungeon to make a quest to, so he's like, everybody just let anybody who has a key take the key and get out of here, and then just dig underneath your dungeon door is, and then when you when the devil tries to summon or bring the whole earth back to hell with him, that's how he gets down. Apparently it's going to suck everybody up into their doors. Not 100% sure what the logic was on that, how that fully works, why they need to be underneath. Wouldn't they have to be, wouldn't the bottom of the world, wouldn't they have to be on the top? I'm not sure if it goes around the surface.
I don't know.
Didn't quite understand that one a lot, but I kind of get the whole premise is like, if he's got enough souls, then we can all leave.
Anything can happen. If there's one thing we know now, nothing is set in stone in the dungeon. Anything can happen.
It's his book, he can make whatever rules. Like, I don't know how gravity works on that earth or whatever. I don't know if it's like it's different. They're not getting sucked down now, because I thought they would have to be on top. That everything's gonna get sucked down, but I guess they're going up. The portal's in the sky, and it's gonna surround the whole planet, so that everybody gets to be sucked up into the sky. I don't know.
Yeah,
not sure, but
on that note, let's wrap up here. So protections have been turned off for Faction Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Very excited for that.
They have an army coming from space.
They got their own
previous
army.
crawlers.
Yeah, previous crawlers. The NPCs get their own team, led by Juicebox and Ferdinand.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be interesting. I wonder how that's going to work, if there's going to be allies or, who knows? Anything can happen.
Nebula's god got killed off. So now they don't have a god to fight for them.
I don't know if it was the epilogue or the last chapter where we got Princess Formidable wanting to implement the fail-safe for the crawl, remember? And the other council members just muting her.
Yep. They just don't want to. They don't want to blow themselves up. They got some self-preservation going on. They're like, well, like I don't want to die, so I don't want the self to blow this thing up. And it's like, oh, you just want to kill your family. It's like, well, yeah, I do, but I'm gonna die too. I'm in the same spot. I'm like, I'm at the crawl now. I can't get away. I'm stuck. So,
and the AI wants to continue the crawl as well. So, it's gonna keep going.
It's gonna be everybody's. They've made their bed and now they gotta sleep in it.
Yeah, I might run through this one again, or might run through the whole series again once before book 7 comes out, because I want to get back to it, and it's always fun to go through it. So,
is there any news on that or no?
Maybe this year, I think.
Hopefully this year, that'd be dope.
I think sometime this year, from what I heard, he was getting there. While we're waiting for book 7, we have 5 options here, and I'll put up a poll, later on. You can put an official poll and have people vote. If you are eager for one of these options, please leave it in the comments. So what we have is number 1, Everybody Loves Large Chests by Nevin Iliev, narrated by Jeff Hayes again, which would be, love Jeff Hayes. So that's option number 1. Option number 2 is The Wandering Inn by Pirate Abba, narrated by Andrea Parsnow. Option number 3, He Who Fights with Monsters by Travis Deverell, aka Shirtaloon, narrated by Heath Miller. Option 4, The Primal Hunter by Zogarth, narrated by Travis Baldry. And lastly, option 5 is Defiance of the Fall by J.F. Brink, narrated by Pavi Proxko. So those are our 5 options. If you're eager for one of those, please comment, let us know. A poll will be coming out for you to vote on which one we should continue next. Heard nothing but rave reviews about all of these series, so let us know your thoughts, please. And we will decide soon. I'll put up a poll soon. We'll decide which one to get to very, very soon.
Kind of exciting.
So that's it. Yes.
Yeah.
That's it for book 6, man.
You just gotta wait now. I know you're no stranger to it. You're no stranger to waiting.
Things are getting wild. Mine's being blown a little bit. I can't wait. I can't wait to continue. And we should be back sometime soon with a brand new series, LitRPG series for everybody. So we'll end things there. Thank you for joining me, Nick. Thank you for everybody for viewing, and we'll catch you next time.
All right. Take it easy.